Okay, we are back in the meeting. We've just come back from our lunch break and we are live streaming. At this point, we're going to go to Recreation and Community Development, and I'm going to turn it over to Chair Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Okay, we have a number of items on the Recreation and Community Development portion of the agenda. So we'll start with item 10.11, which is the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee meeting minutes of March 24th. And I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm glad to see this committee is back active again. It's good to see after there was a bit of a break. And however, I'll let Hannah and Councillor Schulis, as he's the our council rep, perhaps make comments on this.
Councillor. Yes, you, Councillor Wilmer. If you don't mind, I'll go first before Hannah. And yes, I'm very excited too. We're back on track. There are people from the from the community has stepped up, and we do have a chair. We have a vice chair. We have a treasurer and secretary. Those are the main positions as far as our terms of reference. They're looking for one more to make 5. And it'll be a position of member at large. Not that it's needed, but more people at the table, because the terms of reference says you can have five members. So I'm very, very excited, as you can see in these minutes, and I'm hoping that council will approve these. It looks like we're going to have a very active year coming up with all the activities and that. So, but there's a lot of energy, and maybe Hannah can say this, maybe add to this here, but I know for myself, I'm quite excited. Thank you very much.
Okay, Hannah?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. They definitely have lots of plans and ideas and just kind of moving forward. Their big one is their bottle drive, I think they're moving forward with at Bark Lake Waste Site, which they've been working with Hillary on. So yeah, they're just kind of gaining momentum, I guess, and getting going on a number of different ideas.
Are there any comments or questions from the rest of the council? Okay, if not, we do have a recommendation to accept the minutes. Sue, could you read that?
Yes, through the chair, that the Barry's Bay Recreation Committee meeting minutes for March 24, 2022 be accepted as presented.
Could I get a mover, please? Councillor Schulis, and seconded by Mayor Love. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor? That's carried. All right, item 10.12 is a report from Hannah, a March recreation update. And Hannah, I'll let you go through this. We can save questions to the end.
Perfect. We had a successful March break week, so I just have a bit of a breakdown there on some programming we did with the digital sign. I just wanted to provide an update that we have had some conversations with the MTO, and we will be moving the sign. MTO doesn't allow transitional message signs on their highways, and we're like this close from being in that connecting link. It's only a few meters away, but we will have to move it. We had a handful of suggestions thrown around with staff. The best bet as far as, hydro's there, and it makes sense because that's where the arena is. Just moving it back a few meters into our property line towards the arena. We've also had a number of organizations the past few months take advantage of the charitable organization rate for rentals of facilities. We had a fundraising broomball tournament. There's a tentative fundraiser for Barry's Bay Minor Hockey. We also have done in-kind donation of space for CRC in Killaloe. So we've had, I just kind of wanted to update council on that, the fact that we have had a handful of those. We do regularly get requests for donated or discounted space. So we do have that charitable organization rate for them if it's applicable. And they also are always given the opportunity to request a donation from council. So they are aware of that option. We also have looked into adding a charitable organization fee for the ball field, as we've noticed a lot of folks want to hold fundraising tournaments there. We've had public skating wrap up for the year. We're super grateful. We had 19 public skates that were completely sponsored by local businesses and organizations. we had more people asking to sponsor a skate than we had skates to be sponsored, which is fantastic. So we're obviously super thankful for our community and looking forward to seeing that again next year. And then I did attend a short-term rental community engagement seminar at the request of the CAO, and I think she'll bring up some of the stuff we learned at once she gets around to her report on that topic. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Poplinski. Councillor Poplinski, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question to Hannah on the last item on your list was you attended a seminar on the short-term rental. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned some key pieces of information, including the clarity of the goal of regulation, why is regulation required, environmental concerns for rural properties, especially septic systems, and housing concerns of communities with low available housing inventory. Those are all very, very key components of when we're looking at moving forward and having some sort of legislation, bylaws, or whatever. Is there anything else that you can share with us on that you may have been able to learn, or material which you would have been received?
So this seminar in particular, it focused on public outreach. So if a municipal government did decide to move forward with legislating kind of how to do that public outreach factor. So it was less about those key components, though they were mentioned, so I included them there. And I do know that the CAO has a report, I believe, on this agenda, kind of going into far more detail on that request from council regarding short-term rentals.
So the information which you would have received then is you expect that it's going to be captured in this report coming up from the CAO? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I shared
Okay.
the stuff I learned there, yeah, with the CAO.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's a concern in many communities. When you, as soon as you turn on the internet and put in short-term rentals, you see all the issues that many places are having. So thanks for including that in your report. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue.
I just want to clarify before we get to my short-term rental report, this part of that session that I asked Hannah to attend, it's if we were to move forward with short-term rentals. This would be a group or the type of organization we would reach out to that would have to do the surveys and the reviews, as well as be involved in the consultation. So I did not speak to this component. That would only come if council was to decide they're moving forward with regulating and licensing and doing public consultation for short-term rental, just for clarity.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on any of the items in this report? If not, it's just a recommendation that we accept it as information, so we don't have to do anything on that. I would just like to say thank you again to the 13 sponsors that we did have this year, and the others who were not able to sponsor because we couldn't accommodate everyone. But that's great to see the community coming forward and doing that. I think it means a lot. All right, item 10.13 is swim program. Again, a report from Hannah.
So this was put together. I know when the budget chats were happening, there was some questions about the swim program and what the financials were for 2021 versus the plans for this year. So I broke down the information from 2021. I, of course, wasn't here, but lots of information I gathered from notes and staff on how it went, as well as what we're planning for this year. There will be big changes because we're no longer using the Red Cross and we're transitioning over to the Life Saving Society. So there are some changes in the structure of how we're doing it. And I've kind of, played with the dates as far as kind of making things work for this new structure of shorter sessions and then having one more rather than rather than two, we will have three.
No, and I think that's a good idea. And I also, my understanding is switching to the life-saving program was because Red Cross is moving away from their swim program. Exactly. Yeah. So this isn't something that we're doing by choice or that we decided to do. This is something that
everyone who uses the Red Cross is transitioning over. There's been official seminars that I've been attending and stuff like that. So this isn't a decision that myself or other staff made. This is something that's happening. So we're adjusting, and I attached there's a press release, as well as I did do a swim program survey to see what people were interested in 2022, and I attached those results there for your review.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for members of council on the swim program? If not, this again is an information item, so we can move on to the next item, which is 10.14, which is the tender for the rink slab replacement at the Paul J. Yakabuski Community Center. And Hannah, are you dealing with that, or is it
It should be
Hillary?
Hillary.
Yeah.
Is he here?
Hillary, are you here?
Oh, perfect.
I'm here. Sorry.
Hi, Hillary. All right, so we have a report prepared by yourself on the tender for the rink slab replacement.
Correct, Chair Wilmer. So I guess this kind of the horse came first before the cart, or the horse. So you heard earlier from Doug Hackery. So he explained that I didn't have no choice here. I had to make something, and I had to, say that pending the bid review results. So we're at the bid review results, and everyone heard the 1,639,000 HST excluded. So then I wrote out a kind of a mock recommendation to fill in the blanks after the fact. And the council approved the recommendation for Barry, Bryan and Associates as outlined in the bid review recommendation. Award the tender MV 2022-01 to Barry, to Freecon. And then you add the dollars in there, and it's ready to go.
What was the final dollars again? 1.6?
1,639,000.
Okay, perfect.
HST excluded.
Okay. And I think council has seen, Amanda has sent email sort of on how to fund it and what reserves. There were 4 reserves to be used. So I'm wondering, are there any questions? Sue?
I can read the recommendation prior to discussion if you'd like.
Okay, that would be perfect.
That council approve the recommendation from Barry, Bryan and Associates as outlined in the bid review letter and award the tender MV 2022-01 contract for the Township of Madawaska Valley rink slab replacement to Freecon Construction for a sum tender value of $1,693 excluding HST, and that it be financed as recommended by the treasurer by drawing funds from the following municipal reserves. Leachate Reserve, $400,000 to be paid back over 10 years. Landfill Rehabilitation Reserve, $600,000 to be paid back over 10 years. PJYCC Reserve, $487,400. Unallocated Reserve, $325,600.
All right. And I just have one question on that. Hillary stated a number. It's very similar, 1639, and you said 1693.
Yeah,
So
your number was different, Sue. Look at your number. Oh, you're muted.
It's only.
Do you have the bid letter in front of you?
I have the bid. Yes, the bid review is 1,639. 1639. You have.
Okay.
I'll just double check here on the.
All right. So with that change, I'm prepared to move it. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Bromwich. All right. Any discussion? Councillor Poplinski.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can you tell me, is our HST tax, some of it returned? We got a.
Yes, the treasurer can speak to that.
Hi, Amanda. Amanda, you're muted.
No. It's doing what
think-
it did to Janice once.
I think it's your headset is up on your head, Amanda. Maybe you have to move it down. It's not in front of your.
Put on your foot.
There, better?
There you
Okay,
Working?
thanks, Hannah. Technical support. Okay, on 13% HST, a municipality only pays 1.76%. So 1693 times 1.76%. So on that tender bid, we would be only paying 29,796 HST.
Only.
Well, I apologize. I should not have said only.
Better than the 13%, yes.
Yes.
So, all right, any other questions? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the Community, Paul J. Yakubowski Community Center update. And this one is from Alan. I'm just wondering who's speaking on this one. Is Alan here? Nope.
He's
Alan is not here.
No.
Okay.
So it might be between me and Hillary that we could probably
Yes.
answer any questions.
All right, well, let's go through it and you guys can highlight what we should talk about or what happened.
Okay, so I'll take it off, and I believe the first section is COVID related. Yeah, dehumidifiers were installed, outdoor rinks. We had a good run on the outdoor rinks. Pretty successful, everything. So what else is shut down during COVID? This is actually information that Council was aware of through the COVID. Ice resurfacer, nature of designs. Leon's completed the fire inspection. Generators were installed at Cummer Hall and Cummer Fire Hall. Well, that was at the last meeting where there's still a little bit of work to do. TSA, we had an inspection at the arena, and there was some identified concerns in there. They've since been resolved. We get into February, arena will reopen, staff and students return, PSWs, TSA resolved. That's where he resolved the TSA. New entrance door, there was a new entrance door where you come in, it was budgeted for, there's actually rough shape on the rocket. Hot water circulating pump installed, fire alarm. That's a yearly thing. They come here to do the fire alarm and fire extinguishers, all our facilities. March, ice rentals.
Sorry, Hillary, if I may through the chair, when you turn, we can't hear you. You have to be facing the computer. We're losing you.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I'll put the laptop.
Just want to
Thank
see your
you.
pretty face.
So, yeah, and you have to, sometimes I put my headsets on, but I didn't today for some reason. So, railway station assessment, that's coming along. Flower hanging pots, Gerbers, that's going to happen soon. Ball meeting, I don't know nothing about ball. Hannah, what's with the ball stuff?
I'm not sure about this one either. I think it might be referring to the teams that use the ball field, just maybe kind of what nights they're going to be using and establishing a schedule.
They're getting ready for the season.
Yeah.
What LED received the quote from Welk for new baseboard heaters and LED lights in referee room and change room. I'll speak to him on that. Finger docks, actually they're starting on the 2 wharfs now for in April. It's a good thing. He came here this morning and it's a goal. We're gonna do these and we're removing the ones in Cummer to dry out. We have to dry them out because the ones in Cummer are in the water.
All right, Councillor Poplinski, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question is related to the finger docks, or the docks in both Cumbermere and Barry's Bay. There were some safety issues, I know, in Barry's Bay. And so when you mentioned we've contracted that work out, have we?
No, we're doing that ourselves.
Okay.
We're reskinning them all.
Okay, so and you mentioned the one in Combermere. I know last year it was brought to the attention of our people that there's a couple of the finger parts of the one in Combermere are very unstable because of the balance, the various floats underneath. It seemed to be maybe there's an issue. Matter of fact, I even went down when I heard the complaint and I experienced it myself. So, and hopefully that is something that's going to be looked at.
Absolutely. We have spare floaty things at the yard too.
Okay.
They're
okay. Well, that I think is what it needs, Hillary. But if they're looking at it, and as soon as they walk on it, they'll see it's almost knocks you into the water. It was so bad last year there. Yeah, and I had two different people call me about it. And so I went down and checked it, sure enough. And I know they were aware of it at the office there. So just want to make sure that's looked after.
We have new ones. Hannah, you won't believe this. My laptop went dead. I forgot to plug it in. Can you carry this forward? Just whatever you see, whatever you can read there.
Like for the report, sorry, just read through the rest of it.
I think we're pretty well down to April. We're just
okay. That's good.
So I think unless council has any questions on the few things in April, I think pretty well it's self-explanatory, and it's nice to get this kind of update. So again, this is for information. Are there any questions for any Councillor Schulis? Councillor Schulis, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, a question for Hillary or Hannah. It's about the outdoor rinks. Hillary, you had mentioned that it was a good season now, a good season as far as weather and conditions, or a lot of people were using these facilities, especially in Barry's Bay, because we had a tough decision of keeping. At one point, there wasn't too many of the public really using it. So how was attendance and participation in the outdoor rink? Thank you very much.
Well, I felt that there was, whenever I went there were schools using it in Barry's Bay.
Good.
And I seen people skating there. So what I seen, it's well used, and the Comber is well used always.
Well, always, yeah, that's right. Yes,
I do think, I do think that there was a good use of both rinks. I think particularly in Barry's Bay, we had school groups using it. And with vaccination requirements with the arena, I think it made the outdoor rinks even more popular. So something to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, if not, this is for information, and we'll move on to the next item, which is item 10.16, Communications, Marketing, and Promotions Working Group. This is Gwen's report.
Sorry, here I am. So as you will recall, the Communications, Marketing, and Promotion Group was established by Council after a staff member identified the need for a communication plan. Subsequently, the Treasurer had provided a report last summer regarding the tax bills and the use of a logo or a crest, which she wanted updated for the next order. Council then, during budget deliberations, requested that we provide a report to Council on what this working group was accomplishing and where we were at. So presented with this report is both the communication plan and a draft visual identity plan. And also, this was a kind of premature for us to provide this. We weren't quite ready because we hadn't had approached staff with it, but we weren't sure if we needed direction from Council and to proceed with these documents, or if we wanted to go to staff first. So the reports that are attached are in draft form. So some of the formatting to them is a little rough, and they're not all filled in because we haven't got there yet. Let me see. We also have attached a update of the crest, which was discussed by council at one point and staff, whether we were going to use a new crest or just update it. So we had we had them redone to show what they could possibly look like, and they didn't format very well when I attached them to the agenda. Our working group has kind of decided amongst ourselves that we would like to stick with the crest and stick with the recreation logo, that it might cause confusion as adding one more piece of it, but that would be, we're looking for direction on that. And like I said, today we're just asking council to receive this report as information and provide any guidance or direction or input on either of the drafts that have been provided. And then we would like to take it back to staff and departments for more information and to complete the document.
Thank you, Gwen. And as a member of that committee too, I know we were asked to bring a report because there hasn't been any reports to council. So there is the 2-pager report, which is really just an update on our activities over the last year and a half. We had a fair break in the middle because one of our key players, the position wasn't filled for a fair length of time. And now that Hannah's on board, we do have our 4-person committee. And since Hannah's been here, we've just had the 1 January meeting. I know there were the plans are attached, and perhaps that is premature because I really feel, I think they're excellent plans, and they are drafts that Gwen has prepared and the committee has looked at. But there are things that certainly need input. Marketing and communication is right across the board in the municipality. So my recommendation would be that we sort of accept the report as information, but the 2 plans I feel should go back to staff to review and revise as necessary, and then we can bring them back to council. So that's just the thought from myself. Councillor Poplinski is also on the committee, and Renee, Councillor, I'd like to hear your comments too.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, actually, our thanks to Gwen for doing all the work in these reports, and to everybody else on the committee that has come up with some wonderful ideas, address many of the issues, and one of the things that I've been saying for years is that we have a jewel down at Lakeshore Park. And then, of course, one of the things that's been mentioned on here, music events at Lakeshore Park, and whether we're going to do that with a portable stage or eventually in a permanent stage. But it is something that I know Hannah will be very involved with. And things like information, and I've mentioned and others have mentioned using our kiosks. The one in Cumbermere is still stacked full of stuff from 5 and 6 years ago. And so those are areas that we can not spend a lot of money, just get out our material out there for the benefit of the especially the seasonal people. So there are some things on here. And one of the ideas about advertising the loop back home via the township of Madawaska for people that are visiting Algonquin Park. We're approaching the tourist season. Is there something we can do in terms of advertising? I think I agree that we need to come back with a further report after, staff have had a look at those 2 reports. But there are some things that we could do for this year. The safety, the waterway and boating and so on. We had a committee approach us last year after budget time. And we didn't seem to have a lot of money for anything, but I think there's probably a few dollars that if we need, especially when it comes to safety, I think we need to take advantage of it because of the timing. But yes, I agree with your assessment, Councillor, and I think we need to address the very things that have been brought up.
Thank you. And one more thing before I open it up. With this committee, I'm not sure if we're meeting our mandate or what it really is, but I'll be quite honest. There's 2 things. One, I find this committee very, it's like a think tank. Many good ideas come out of here. It's nice to be able to meet with staff and council members together to discuss ideas and throw them around. I think it's a very effective way of developing good ideas. Where I think perhaps, and this could be my fault, we maybe made a mistake was not, we probably should report back to council after each meeting. As I said, we've only had 3 or 4, but it would be, I think, worth keeping council updated after each meeting, just to let the rest of council know what the committee is talking about. And we haven't made any decisions, but we've had great discussions with many good ideas. So that's where I'll leave it for now, and we'll open up for comments. Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. First off, this is way more than I was expecting to get from the working group. Just an update was really all I was asking for. However, it shows that there's a great deal of work that's gone into this, and there are many ideas with it captured within the 2 documents attached to the report, which was all I was expecting. At this point, an ad hoc committee doesn't have the authority to implement anything. But I think this ad hoc committee has certainly provided enough, not just bones, but meat on the bones for this to be at a stage where it needs to go to staff to get that staff input. And then it needs to come to council for final discussion. The document itself does need a little bit of tweaking and honing. There's a couple of typos in it. It certainly, there's a work plan that does need to be allocated by the CAO in consultation with staff to make sure that no one staff person is burdened by a huge amount of work. But I think this is a great starting point, and it's certainly covered the bases as an ad hoc committee of looking at the entire subject area and coming forward with some key recommendations that are in these documents. So at this point, to me, it's like, rather than keeping this within the committee, it's time to get it moving forward. So it's time for it to go to staff, get it honed in on, and get something that can come back to council so we can start to make some decisions. As Councillor Poplinski said, we're coming up on the tourist season, so we may not be able to implement everything that's in this document. We may as a council not agree with everything that's in this document, but to get it honed by staff into what can be done and by who, and then coming back to council is critically important so that we can get on with some of the things that are suggested in this document, hopefully for this year, using the budgetary amounts that we have set aside already. So at this point, you know, that's what I see. I see that you guys have done way more work than I anticipated, and we're going to lose the season if we don't get on with it. At the same time, I'm really not sure that there's much more that the ad hoc committee can do. I think you've pretty much more than fulfilled your mandate. You've given us plenty to chew on and get through so that we can get moving forward with our communications. So to me, I'm seeing this is what we needed from the ad hoc committee. It's time to move forward to the next step, which is staff, and then back to council when it's ready. And the ad hoc committee has really fulfilled its purpose at this point in time. One may be struck again to review how this is going, or council may wish to review how it goes as we implement the plan. But I think we need to move it forward.
I agree with you, Mayor Love, in the sense that it needs to move forward. And I know committees are, or task forces or whatever, are just to deal with one thing and they don't go on forever and ever. I do have to say I've enjoyed this committee. I think we've accomplished a lot together, and staff have been terrific in helping get this information together. And you know, I agree. We need to send it back to staff. We need to make sure things happen. And I think now is the time to do that. So Yeah, so I do agree with you, yes. I will miss the committee. Any other comments? All right, so I don't know whether there's direction being given then. I think we are suggesting that the recommendations from the task force be looked at by staff and reviewed, including the 2 reports, and then that a report come back to council. Does the rest of council agree with that?
Certainly.
Okay. Sue, do you need to have a recommendation?
Yeah, I'm just adding that the policies as proposed. So I heard 2 different things. So am I also adding the dissolution of the committee, or that's at a different time? So I have right now that the Communications, Marketing and Promotion Working Group report is received as information, and that the policies as proposed be reviewed by staff and brought back to council for review.
Okay, Mayor Love, you had your hand up.
I think we're bringing it back to council for council's consideration. The review by staff will help to align our resources with the recommendations and the items in those reports.
And I also think that the dissolution of the committee should wait until staff bring the report back.
Yeah, oh, that's fair.
Okay.
If I may, that the Communications, Marketing and Promotion Working Group report is received as information, and that the policies as proposed be reviewed by staff and brought back to council for review and consideration.
And I will move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pavlensky. So we're open for discussion now. Mayor Love, I saw you with your hand up.
No, that's good. I'm just not certain what the committee would be doing after this point in time. Because that's all.
I think we'll be inactive right now, but I'm just saying perhaps it should remain in place until we get a report from staff. I don't think we'll be holding any meetings during that time. All right, so any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's passed. Thank you, Gwen. Okay, so now I'm lost, just a second. Okay, item correspondence. We have a request or a recommendation that council approve an in-kind donation for the Renfrew County Senior Games. Sue, you have a resolution on that. Could you read that? Sue, you're muted.
I unmuted to cough, and there I go again. That council approved the in-kind donation of space at Paul J. Yakubuski Community Center for use by Renfrew County Senior Games, and that council approve the request for monetary donation, or it would be that they deny the request for monetary donation.
All right, so we have a choice of approving or not approving. I know I would say yes. Any other thoughts? Mayor Love.
Just a concern that this is for May and June of 2022, and what space is it they are getting? If it's the arena floor, it may not exist.
Yeah.
At that point, at least I'm hoping this project would be begun hopefully fairly quickly. And if it's for the upstairs lounge, I have no concern. Just, is there a conflict?
Well, it's a good point, and so I would qualify my yes, yeah, based on whether it's available. Hannah.
The request is for space upstairs. I should have clarified that in my report there, but yeah, so they're not, we're making sure everybody knows that the arena floor is off.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, this request comes through each year. Did we, last year, does anybody know if we did give them a monetary donation? That was a question that was being asked for the last couple of years now. We don't mind giving out the space, but the monetary donation was kind of on the table, so.
Yeah.
I'll let Mayor Love maybe talk about that.
Mayor Love?
I don't think they did it last year because of COVID. And it may have been a couple of years, so we'd have to go back a few years and to see, but I don't recall council giving them a monetary donation. We donated the space, I believe, but I am going back a few years.
Amanda?
I don't recall ever giving them a monetary donation. It's always been for just donation in kind for the use of the space.
And that's what I think it should be. So. All right, so we have a recommendation. Can I have a, Sue, did you read it? I can't remember now. I think you did, right? You're muted again.
Yes, I can read it again.
Okay, thanks.
That council approved the in-kind donation of space at Paul J. Akabuski Community Center for use by Renfrew County Senior Games, and that council approved the request for a monetary donation. And I had you as a mover.
Okay, and but they're requesting in that a monetary donation.
Okay,
So we're
so you
saying
want that
no.
removed?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the space.
The council approved the in-kind donation of space at Paul J. Akabuski Community Center for use by Renfrew County Senior Games.
Okay, so I'd moved. Can I get a seconder? Mayor Love? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. There's no unfinished business, so I will turn the chair back to Mayor Love.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wilmer. We are at Planning Matters and Statutory Meeting under the Planning Act. The first item is Municipal Reports, and the very first report is the building permit statistics for February 2022. Usually this is just something that is presented to council if anyone has any comments or questions on it at this point in time. I'm not seeing any. I think it's just an information item, so we'll just accept it as information. Second item is regulating short-term rentals, and this is a report by our CAO. So I'm going to turn it over to our CAO to speak to her report.
Hi, I do see that I think Corey had to leave. I don't see him unless he's in the waiting room, and I'm not sure. So this, the report is fairly lengthy and self-explanatory. So it was a compilation of quite a few staff meetings, some research, the municipal compliance officer and bylaw, looking at different municipalities, as well as reviewing our experience here in Madawaska Valley, going back through the reports that have been submitted to council monthly, showing how many were complaints, the complaints by noise and or for fire resulting from tenants at short-term rentals were not really tracked separately or individually. But if you go back through the year of the bylaw report of activity, there weren't that many in comparison to when we were looking at other areas. So in preparation for the recommendation to council, I did add in my report some considerations and consultations that staff undertook. I did include some information and identified the areas that we looked at. The bigger message, once we started looking at the costs of regulating, of licensing, the burden going on to the taxpayer to regulate and license individuals' homes, the big message that kept reoccurring was owner care and control. It is staff recommendation is to implement a program that ensures residents with short-term rentals are not penalized and can still generate revenue to offset their taxes, yet not shift the burden of licensing and enforcement to the taxpayer. Staff is seeking council support to implement a program which encompasses education, enforcing the existing municipal bylaws, adding a non-compliance inspection fee, and owner notice of violation with associated fines, with the ability to add the fines to the tax roll. This would ensure that the onus of the oversight and costs associated with complaints and non-compliance with short-term rental properties is the responsibility of the property owner that is gaining revenue from that short-term rental. Owners must have care and control and be responsible for all activities, including the consequences or costs resulting from issues at their own property. Licensing and regulating short-term rental shifts the burden onto the taxpayer as a whole. When we looked at the regulating and licensing short-term rental, basically it means the municipal oversight of ensuring that prior to renters occupying the facility, they would be required to undergo inspections, provide proof of liability insurance, and adhere to capacity limits after they are established for the size of their home. And failure to register with the municipality would be another layer of enforcement that isn't considered when we were looking at regulating and licensing. So when we looked at, does staff recommend regulating and licensing short-term rentals? We were asked to bring forward our thoughts and our suggestions, and this is what I have brought before you. As part of that review, we included as well as the monthly reports on complaints, fire safety issues, on bonfires, noise complaints, the time of the noise, the cursing, the loud, the type of complaints, and many of them would not be, we still would be charging them under our municipal bylaws as well as regulating. We did want to clarify what is short-term rental. So if regulating and licensing was brought to the table, that would include renting a private room in a home, an entire home, a seasonal property like a cottage or any other space. Short-term rentals do not include established accommodations such as bed and breakfast. Those are considered in our zoning bylaw, hotels, trailer parks, or campgrounds. In the review that we did see the validity and how it should be encouraged for individuals who do want to rent their facility, that they should be, there are platforms and there are regulations in place under existing structures that are not municipally regulated, such as the Airbnb and the similar platforms. They track, they can rate their tenants, they can rate the landlords as well. Staff is recommending against the municipality regulating short-term rental with licensing and fees. What we are recommending is following the Kawartha Lakes example. What they have done, and they have a much bigger population than we do. They're over 600,000. And so they have brought it back to education, charging an occurrence fee, making the owner responsible. So the occurrence fee fine that we are recommending is the same premise as what Kawartha Lakes does, which is, for example, if we are called out to your location, you are the homeowner, and we went out and there was a fire violation. The first occurrence is free. It's a complaint. We don't charge other people to go for complaints. You go to that residence, we file the report that there was a complaint, a warning is issued. If there was a fine under fire or animal or noise, that fine would still occur. At that point, upon returning, they would send a letter to the homeowner notifying of a violation at their property, because they may not be aware that there was a violation at their property. If you go on the second occurrence, then that fine doubles, and on the third, it almost and then it goes, it's a gradual fine system. The whole point of this occurrence fee or fine is to make the owner who is renting his home or their home responsible for the cost, the oversight, and the consequence. Included in that is an education component. I've attached a sample of what Kawartha Lakes has as an education poster. They have a very predominant place on their website where they can log their complaint, as well as go to find the information that's relevant to any changes to the municipal bylaws. I did speak to Corwin yesterday. We met with CGIS, and they recommended and showed a sample where Perth is actually tracking all of their complaints and services and responses to complaints to bylaw on the same platform that council has approved and budgeted for that we move forward. It actually allows them to say how many times at each location and the type of complaint. But more so what it does is the previous report that you saw for building permits, it would generate that same report except for all bylaw infractions and or reports. So it would save Corwin the task of having to do a separate spreadsheet for council, and you get the same material monthly, same as you do for the building department. Corwin liked the platform and felt that it was not an added task, that it would actually streamline the oversight. So part of this occurrence fee can only work if we track. So same as council previously, we had complaints about the fireworks. What council's direction to staff was, let's track it for a year and let's see if the problem is big, if it's isolated because of COVID, if there are any other considerations that we have not thought of. And therefore this, moving forward with this program, also includes adding to bylaw review and updates to council, which of the complaints are actually generated at short-term rentals compared to just regular homes. So that is my report to council. And I leave it in your hands.
Okay, thank you, Sue. So at this point, this is a lot of information, obviously. Just a couple of things I wanted to clarify with you. I'm wondering if is there a reason why the fees that are recommended are sort of so unusual? Like they're not an even fee. I was wondering if
in fairness, what I did was I just copied exactly the fee structure that they had in Kawartha Lakes. I think what it is it's a rounded amount plus the HST.
Okay, so it might relate to some CPI they've added to it over time that's caused it to be this way. I just wondered if we could start with something similar, like nothing on the first occurrence, 112 on the second, double it with a bit to 225 on the third, 450 on the fourth, 900. So it starts to double. And then just say, rather than stopping at sixth occurrence, fees double, say the fee doubles with each subsequent additional occurrence. So it will become fairly quickly an issue for the property owner if they don't address it. Not initially, but once it starts to double, as it seems to be with theirs. That was my thought. Just the amounts were so strange. But again, just to do something like that. Sue?
If I may, through the chair, we did not add any of those fees to the schedule of fee. Exactly for that reason. We were going to add, once we get to the schedule of fees, that if council wanted this to become part of the schedule of fees, we could put those numbers in then.
Okay. I think it just needs to be easy for people to recognize that it's a fee that's basically doubling every time there's an issue. So, you know, if we could sort that out so it's easily recognizable and staff's literally not standing there going, okay, so it was $8.94, now it's going to be doing math in their head. It's got to be easy.
No, I concur.
But we can work that out going forward. There were a couple things that I noted on some of the information, like could we add the municipal website address to it? Because the municipal website is a key place for visitors to be able to find information.
Yes, absolutely. And as stated, we just tried to do very quickly like what it could look like, and then, you know, like change it to reflect what we're doing. And, you know, certainly adding that poster into our tax insert when it goes out. Then they can't say we didn't get it. Everybody gets it. The adjacent homeowners are aware of it. The people that are renting their home are aware of it. And so we have so many we've got, you know, the township tidbits, we have the newsletter, we have our municipal corner. We also have, as you stated, the website, and we can, you know, through the both platforms, through Hannah and through Gwen, push it out into all social media.
Okay, no, I think that would be good. Also identifying fireworks separate from fire pits, because those are two different issues. And if
Yes.
someone can look at this printout and quickly see fireworks and these are the restrictions, would be helpful.
Yes.
Something else we might want to add is that emergency services means calling 911 and to be aware of the rental property's street address. Because if I'm renting it, I may not think about what the address is. I mean, I've rented it, but maybe I get hurt and it's my wife making the call or my husband making the call. Those renting need to recognize we have a 911 system, and they need to be aware of that address so that they can get the help coming to the right place. Sue?
And I think looking at page 224, which is the example of the Kawartha Lakes, as they've put everything in one, it starts with the property address. So the intent is that the owner has that in a, you know, central location at their property home, and all of the information is there, including their contact information.
No, it generally, it looked like a really good concept to go with education first and foremost. Yeah, they were just some of the things that I thought would be really good to include. Anyways, Counsel, any thoughts on this approach? Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Yeah, actually, I was very pleased to see this report, because one of my concerns was about hurting the responsible property owner who's perhaps rented out for many years and has always been very responsible. I think the focus on education, charging for occurrences, and the making the owners responsible, because we're only dealing with the irresponsible owners. That's where we have the problems. Many of our owners have rented for years without any problems at all. And so I think this is a very good report. I think it's a good way of doing it. And it puts some teeth into our ability to deal with people who aren't responsible. I also think licensing would be very difficult for us to enforce and would take up a lot of time and probably be costly. So I think this is a good approach, and I think you've mentioned a few changes to the report that are good, but overall I'm very happy with this, and think it's an excellent approach and excellent report.
I think your comment about the cost of licensing, if a municipality like Kawartha Lakes with over 600,000 people has looked at this and said, no, we're not there, that with our population, even though it increases significantly in the summer, we're nowhere near that.
So we would be constantly hunting down unlicensed ones and that sort of thing. It just
no.
Could be.
No, definitely. Councillor Bromwich, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Yeah, through you, Chair. My son just recently moved to Wasaga Beach, and that's, I forget the name of it. Anyways, it's the town of Wasaga Beach, and he phoned about short-term rentals to the township office because there was nothing on their website about short-term rental bylaws or anything. And they said, look, we are so short of accommodations for the summer that we entice people to rent their cottages. Please, if you have any hope of renting it out, go for it, because we want to fulfill, we want people coming in here as tourists. We have bylaws against noise, we have bylaws against dogs, the same as we do, but there's no licensing fee. They didn't do that because to police that, we don't have the staff. And I think you're hurting an awful lot of the population by starting a license. So I agree 100% with this report. I think it's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any sorry, Councillor Foplinski. And you're muted.
How's that?
That's good.
Good. Very good report, and happy to see this. I think it covers many of the issues that we were looking for. I like the idea of the CGIF. the suggestion that we track it for a year, I think would be very good. I'd like to revisit this again in a year. In the meantime, do all the things that's been suggested. When we talk about education, certainly our website would be a part of it. Also, our kiosks, I mentioned before, having up-to-date information would be very helpful. And any place else where we can spread the word, because it is an issue for people that are living next door with trespassing and various things. And a lot of times the owner is not on the premise. So that's, I think, one of our biggest problems. And areas where the owner is there, the problems are very few. And I think when you talk to our enforcement people, they'll tell you exactly that's the case. So I would like to see us continue to monitor this. And one of the things I would also ask is that we reply to two of the people that took the time to write us a letter and questioned our authority as for passing laws under the Municipal Act. I would ask that we address those two because they were asking for where do we get authority to do it. I think they need to know we do have authority, and I'd like to see that properly addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the input that was provided was what came from members of the public in relation to Council's previous discussion and requests to staff to look into this. And I mean, that's what we asked them to do. It's a responsible thing to look into this sort of situation to see, is this something that we as a municipality should be considering and approaching or not? And at this point in time, certainly what staff has discovered from checking in with the other municipalities that are doing it or are considering doing it, they've learned that we really need to have a far more significant problem than the one we currently are facing. We need to have a problem that is more universal across our municipality. We have situations of one or two isolated locations where there are concerns, and those can be addressed through the bylaws we currently have in place and through the appropriate processes. But having this occurrence fee is a good way to notify a property owner who may not be aware that there has been a concern with the neighbors, with violations of our noise or fireworks bylaws, so that they're aware that who they rent to, they are responsible. And it is in their own best interest to be very cognizant of who they're renting to. Because it is going to be a factor when it comes to if something goes wrong with their insurance and as well if someone gets hurt on their property. So I think this is a very good approach, certainly. Those that did write, we wanted to make sure that since they wrote to Council that you did have that information. Sue, there was one more piece of correspondence that did not make it in this package, and that was in relation to floating trailers and cabins.
Yes, so it was forwarded by the Cottage Association, and it was floating sea containers, and they're on water Airbnbs, I suppose. So we have had since then some communication with MNRF. Actually, it came simultaneously to receiving that correspondence, asking municipalities and CBOs to fill out a survey if that is happening in our area, because as you know, we don't regulate the waterway. It is an MNRF responsibility. However, what they're trying to do is determine the role that a municipality can play to assist with that. I have forwarded that information to Kawartha Lakes as well. They had not yet received that information. And I did ask when after that we will attach it as an addendum to this agenda.
Okay, so this is something fairly new, but it is happening in some municipalities where it's basically floating short-term rental accommodations. And you just, you know, there's always been an ability to rent a boat on the Trent Severn, I believe. And
Yes.
it's a boat that you can it's like a boat that you can
Houseboat.
stay in, houseboat thing. Well, this has been taken a step further in some, I think mostly northern municipalities, where they're creating accommodations out of sea containers sea containers, sorry, floating them on barges, and you can basically tootle around wherever you want and park, and there you are. That's your vacation spot. And you only have to move once every 21 days, I believe, and you only have to move 100 meters. So if you could imagine if this catches on in a community like ours, how some of our property owners who may or may not own their shoreline, but who have shoreline properties are not going to be best pleased if somebody motors up in their floating short-term rental accommodation and parks in front of their view and spends 3 weeks there.
It's going to happen.
I know it will eventually happen, but we will have to see what the MNRF decides that they can do about it, because at the moment we can't do anything about it. Councillor Wilmer.
Would our regulations concerning sea containers prevent this? No.
I don't think so. They're not on property.
We have we don't regulate the waterway.
Yeah.
That's right. That's correct. Okay. No, because I did read an article and before I received this, and I think it was on the Trent Severn, and actually it's more than people using them as vacation homes. There was this one couple that were living in it year round, and he in fact had now decided to get into the business of building them for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this will be on our radar most definitely, and we'll be keeping a close eye to that particular issue as it slowly spreads, and hopefully as the government starts to figure out a way to address that, because it is going to have impacts on the waterway, and certainly one has to wonder where the wastewater goes. Also, what, if it impinges someone's enjoyment of their property, is there any recourse? So just be aware, Council, we did get that correspondence, and I do believe staff could just respond with a little update on that we did receive something from the MNRF, and we would be replying. Sue?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so as part of that communication and part of the discussions that is starting to happen around this subject matter is looking at an example from Georgian Bay. So Georgian Bay has drafted a municipal bylaw that they feel would assist MNRF. But if we get any more information, we'll bring it to council.
Okay, thank you. So Sue, what do you want to do at this point? You have a recommendation. Do you want to fix the fees as presented? Do you want to simplify them? Do you want to just identify that they'll be included and come back with something?
Well, seeing as the next item is approving the schedule of fees, and we are planning on bringing the bylaw to council at the regular council meeting, I'd like to just propose that we round down those numbers, if that's okay. And if I may, through the chair, propose the recommendation that council approve the staff recommendation to not regulate and license short-term rentals within the municipality, and that staff implements a program including tracking the type of complaints using CGIS module, a promotional education program listing municipal bylaws, and that staff adds to fees and charges an occurrence fee structure. First occurrence, no cost; second occurrence, 100; third occurrence, 200; and subsequently fees double with each subsequent occurrence.
Okay, that's very simple.
Okay, and that the program includes a notice of violation and associated fees be sent to the homeowner, and that such fines, if unpaid, be added to the associated tax roll.
Okay, Council, so it's very straightforward. $100, $200, $400, $800. That would be how the occurrence fine would increase.
Plus applicable taxes.
Yes. All right. So you've heard the recommendation. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and Sue, if you could please respond to those who corresponded with us and just let them know the outcome.
I will. I did contact all who I had some calls as well, so I've contacted all of them to advise that this would be on council today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I think that's a step in the right direction, and hopefully this won't be a huge problem for our community at least in the short term, until some of these other issues that are coming up, there's a resolution to them. All right, we don't have any correspondence and information items or any outstanding matters under planning, so we'll move to finance and administration, municipal reports. First is the schedule of fees 2022. And Sue, I will turn it over to you to speak to it.
I just added the report. Every department worked on their page and their department and proposed some changes. Many of them, as you'll know, they were just amended from resolutions we've done throughout the year, discussions we've done throughout the year, to be able to streamline the cost to what it is now. What we have done is included anything that is new and or a change in red for quick reference for council to be able to see that change. So if you have anything departmentally, I can speak to it or have the department speak to why they're asking for that change. As it pertains to, if I go back to administration, there's no changes. We did most of the changes throughout the year. And we are proposing probably in 2023 to start, we're going to track how many commissioning of votes we are doing. And we probably in 2023, in discussions with myself and the deputy clerk, will be recommending a small fee for the commissioning of documents in 2023, but not recommending it this year. We did get a request actually from Councillor Poplinski. You were asking about the mileage, and the treasurer did look to see what the new mileage rate is, if it's at CPI. We left it at what it was last year, which was 59 cents. And I believe the treasurer verifying it's at 61 cents. We could just, instead of changing it every year, say that we follow CPI, if that is the will of council, if that makes it easier. So that's open for discussion.
Okay, so you're talking about not CPI, but CRA.
Oh, sorry,
the revenue agency?
Yes.
Because Canada Revenue Agency sets the amount that you can claim for mileage.
Yes, you're
on
correct.
various
Yes.
things. And I know that's what the county follows. It's pretty straightforward. Whatever they set it, that's what it is. And therefore they're not worried about constantly trying to keep up with it, because at the moment it's going up, but it could also come down. So it does keep that in balance. It's a check and balance for that. Councillor Poplinski. Oh, and you're muted.
Yes, that was my point. It was just been clarified, the where this comes from. But my comment, of course, with Amanda was, you know, the price of gas is almost doubled, and so it is something that we have to keep an eye on.
Right.
Maybe no one else has noticed, but I have, because every time I fill up my truck, it's now about $200.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we were to change it to following Canada Revenue Agency's rate, then it would be accounted for, because they do modulate that rate based on the expenses incurred for mileage. So gas would be a factor. Would that be something council would be interested in?
I think we should pursue it.
Okay, Councillor Wilmer?
I was just going to say that makes sense, and then it doesn't have to be changed all the time either. So we'll just.
Sue, do you want a motion to that effect to make that change?
Amanda, do you need a motion, or did you want to just list it on the schedule of fees, and then once the schedule of fees is adopted, then it would always state where it comes from? Oh, maybe Amanda's not there.
Sorry.
Sure.
I missed that, Sue.
Oh, sorry, Amanda. So I was asking the question about whether or not we should formalize and just generalize on our schedule of fees that yearly, where it is that we get the mileage rate, and just add that there, same as we did on the employment bylaw. We say we follow CPI from where. How do we do it with the CRA?
Mm-hmm. I would prefer that if we could just, you know, make the note that per CRA's note or whatever. I'll get the official wording or whatever from their site, but I would prefer that.
Okay, so, but Amanda, do you want a motion from council to approve that you would use the CRA rate?
I think that would be a good idea moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So could I, Sue, is that the motion then, Sue, that we will use the CRA rate for mileage going forward? Or do you want to write me up something?
I'd like to include it with the approval of the schedule of fees moving forward, if I can. I'll include that in my full recommendation.
Okay, so
in
I
case
just
there's
need a
other
motion.
changes.
Yep, I just need a motion to identify that. So will you do that as we're moving through this?
Yes, I
You'll
will.
produce one recommendation at the end that if there's anything else council wants to change, it'll include it.
That's
Okay,
correct.
I just needed to know how we were doing this so we could capture it and not lose it. Okay, so using the CRA will be part of the motion when we're done discussing the schedule of fees. That'll give council's direction to make the changes. We're good with that then, council? Okay. All right, so that's that one. Were there any others then that you wanted to speak to? In administration? Anything else?
No, I'm just going by what I was hoping departments would speak to their. So I identified what was in red. There's nothing else in red on the schedule of fees for.
Okay. There's nothing in animal control in red as well. So I'm assuming that's status quo.
Yes.
I'm just sort of looking down here. Building department. There's nothing. I was going to ask you about the fee for the certificate of compliance from the property standards bylaw, but you're going to have to look into that to see if that's doable.
That's correct.
Okay. Again, that was something that was mentioned in the property standards bylaw, that if it can be included in this schedule, then it's all in one place. And the more we get things in one place and just referring to this schedule of fees, then as we make changes, it happens automatically. But Sue will look into that. Council, stop me if there's any of these you want to talk about. Cemetery, there are some changes there, but those were identified to council.
They were identified to council and we just made the change as presented to council.
Okay, no concerns with those that I see. Fire department. Anything?
They're the same.
They're the same. Okay, licensing, everything looks the same.
Yes.
No concerns with licensing. Public works, nothing changed. Okay, parking, nothing's changed. Planning, now the planning fees were all adjusted based on the changes made by the County of Renfrew, is that correct?
Yes, and seeing as they were just going into their discussions with County Council, I forwarded the actual schedule of fees to them, the planning section, and they updated it in red to reflect the same amount of increase that we had in relation to their increase of cost.
Okay, any questions on that from council? Okay. In the planning fees, there was something I wanted to bring up with council because I think it's something we need to start to consider, and that is the price per linear foot to purchase shoreline road allowance. It's been $8 a linear foot for a very long time. I would remind council that we are now funding public access to water, our wharfs, our parks, public facilities, using the money that we are getting as a municipality off of the sale of shoreline road allowances. So looking at the cost of property in our community and how much it has increased, the value of that land is significant. And we're only charging $8 a linear foot and have been for a long time. I wondered if council would considering that money is going to fund public access, for example, and public parks, if we would consider increasing the cost per linear foot for shoreline to even something like $10. It is something to consider because looking at where the funding's going, if we are selling our land, if we are selling public land at a bargain basement price, right? It's a fire sale almost, it's so cheap. But that's the money we're using to fund our public access, our wharfs, our parks. Then are we doing the community a service? Councillor Wilmer.
I think it should go up, but I really don't know. I mean, waterfront property has certainly increased considerably. I don't know when we set these rates, but you say it was quite a while ago. I also wonder what adjoining municipalities or close by municipalities set their rates at. I wonder if, Sue, do you have any information on that, or because I
I
think we
can
sort of
ask
have.
maybe Silas to weigh in. I can look at a couple here while we're talking. I seem to think we were, yeah, I don't have them in front of me. I'd have to take a quick look here.
Silas, did you want to weigh in on my putting a thumb on the sore button here?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think probably we should be looking at it or council should be looking at it based on what has happened to our real estate in our area. That 66 feet fronts the water. That's the valuable part of a cottage lot. So I'm just holding a file in front of me that I'm working on, a shoreline road allowance closure. We're getting $1,238. They purchased a vacant lot for $234,000 last year. So that is the way it reflects now. I think if the back lot of the shoreline has become that valuable, I think our shorelines have become very valuable. And that has been said by our former municipal solicitor that we were way back in the day, the municipality was undercharging for these lands that are very valuable. So the history of this is it started at $1, $2, $4, $8. That in 2013, there was the moratorium. One of the councillors back in the day wanted market value for these lands. If it goes to market value, you need 2 appraisals of this property. So it gets very intense. So it turned out that it was voted down by the remainder of councils who go to market value. The price doubled from $4 a foot to $8 a foot. So I think, yes, definitely, I would agree with you, Madam Mayor, that it is time to redo our shoreline road allowance closing bylaw, which is 2013-38. So that's how long, or the last time shoreline road allowance costs were reviewed. So I don't know whether just going up to $10 is enough. If I won't be able to do the review, but maybe if Sue wants to check other municipalities what they're charging, maybe that amount should be greater than $10. So I will leave that to council to ponder and for Sue to review. So that's my input on the costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larbetsky. I appreciate the fact that you are the font of history. And you're not, we're really going to miss that when you retire, because you remember all of this information and are able to provide it to us. So it has been a while, Council. I'm not asking for Council to make an instant decision, but I'm suggesting that it really is something we should be looking long and hard at, because this Council has identified that this is money that should go back into the public good. And we've made that change so that, again, this is a way to fund the repairs at our public wharfs. This is a way to fund work that needs to be done on our parks. Mr. Larbetsky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just add one more thing. It seems to be the practice now of the real estate companies that the question they pose to their vendor is, do you own your shoreline road allowance? And you should own it. It adds more value to your property. We can get more money for it. So just to have that in mind as well. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yes, it's certainly something we need to be thinking about, because the value of shoreline in Madawaska Valley may not be identical to the value of shoreline in an adjacent municipality. We've got some mighty fine shoreline. Not all shoreline's the same as well. So we do need to give some thought to this and ensure that we're not selling a public asset, as I say, at fire sale prices. I don't think at least some increase is, but this was the only reason why I suggested $10 was because I figured this was going to be a difficult subject for council, and I didn't want to suggest something, immediately significant increase. But I do want you to think about it, because it's important that we're not just giving that irreplaceable asset, public asset, away, and not gaining from it the ability to ensure that we can maintain public access, that we can possibly, if we are looking at some of the properties that were discussed about not selling them because they would be kept as public access, how do you develop them? Again, this may be a way to have some funds to do so. So it's a balancing act of ensuring that we do have public access to the beauty of our community for everyone. Councillor Poplinski.
Thanks, Mayor Love. I think that $10 increase would be reasonable. I think it's better than 8, but there's additional costs that people would have with surveys, lawyers' fees, and so on. So they're actually paying more than that $8 or $10 by the time they're finished. However, they're going to get it all back, and that's why everybody wants to do it now. I think we should be doing something. If we can increase it up to $10, let's do that. And then really pay attention to it, because also remember, when people buy it, then they get assessed on the increased value of their own property. So we're gaining on the other end as well. We're getting the taxes. So I think it's a win-win for us, but we have to manage it properly. We talked about spending money on docks. That's where the money has to come from. So it's reasonable. And the idea of checking with surrounding municipalities to see what they're getting, I think, is wise. And then we should jump on it and do something. Thank you.
Okay, so council, do we want to at least make the small increase to $10 for this year and have staff come back with more information and just see, if there is an impact to sales of shoreline road allowance? Again, this is an ever diminishing resource, public resource that we're selling here. Is it something we want? I know that that staff want to get on with a new bylaw for the schedule of fees. Are we going to let it ride for another year at $8, or do we want to do a small increase and then have that the whole subject matter reviewed and brought back, I guess, probably to the next council? Councillor Wilmer.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Well, I think one thing we know for sure is we're underpricing it. So yes, we could do the small increase now, but as Councillor Poplinski suggested, $10. But I would like more information on it too, because as has been said, we're using this to fund important projects, and the people who are buying the shorelines are getting their money back when they sell, or so for me, yes, let's do the small increase now so that the fees can be passed. But I think we need to look at a longer term sort of deal for where we're going to price this.
Okay. All right. The rest of council, do we agree that at this point in time we'd like it to be $10 and we want to investigate this further going forward? Okay, Councillor Schulis, Councillor Bromwich, your thoughts on this? Is that okay? All right. So if I'm not seeing any objection, then let's put it in the changes that we would make it $10 a linear foot. And just to ask that staff note that we want a more detailed, like an actual little review of shoreline road allowance pricing. So that might actually be something that comes back with something I know you're working on, which is a lot of looking at the rules around encroachment of shoreline road allowances and things like that. It might be something that is in addition to that. Sue?
I think for the purpose of this, I'd like to keep this with the schedule of fees. And what we'll do is I'll put it in the schedule of fees with the bylaw that we're drafting for regular council at $10, but we will attach a report. I know while we've been talking, Amanda's found a price, Hannah's found a price, but some of them are linear feet, some of them are meters, some of them have an admin fee, some of them don't. So maybe we can find you a few, 5 to 10 comparators, and you can decide then prior to the passing if you want it to be $10 or $8.
Okay.
That seem fair?
Yes. Some of the comparators though do need to be on the edge of the Muskokas.
Yes. Yeah.
Just saying, they can't be sort of just in our local area. We do need to have a sense of what's going on as our community changes and as the demand in our community changes, as we are becoming more of a vacation property destination. Okay, all right. So if you could just put it in that we're going to in our resolution, it'll be $10 when we're completed the schedule of fees, and then we can always change that prior to approving the bylaw. If council feels that what staff finds out has $10 being way out of line. I don't honestly think they're going to, but Mr. Larbetsky, any thoughts on that? Is that at least, I know that certainly this is something that needs to be decided, and at the point it's decided, it'll be implemented.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think definitely $10 is not outrageous. I think that's a very minimal increase considering what the value of real estate is. So if Councillor Poplinski suggested, and so did you, Madam Mayor, $10, if you wish to start with that and then do a review after a full report or research has been done, other municipalities, that would be good. But one of the other things that I just thought of when it comes to administrative costs for the processing of the application, we have been charging $500 forever and ever. Our new municipal solicitor that has taken over has increased his fee, what he's charging for the legal part of it. I think the fee from $500 that I have been charging for the last 20 years should be increased as well. And I don't know what the CAO would suggest or what council would suggest, but that should be taken into consideration as well. Thank you.
Okay, perhaps that's something that staff could just review, because we don't want to, as our costs go up, we do want to ensure that we are also covering the cost of our staff doing the work to process these applications. And that's where we lose. We pay all of the external fees that are a part of the process, but then we end up actually recouping less and less and less over time. So if you could just review that point, and if there's a recommendation from staff to change that fee as well, it could just come back with the bylaw. And we'll just note to council that that'll be a point just to identify to them if that fee is increased once you've had a quick review of that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to capture that knowledge for every moment we have it here and make sure we're making good use of that knowledge and experience that is sitting with us. Okay. All right. So we'll do that. And is there anything else on planning? Okay. I was the one that stirred the pot on that one. Anything on recreation? I think most of these now, I don't know, has council seen these? Were they at the meeting that I was unable to attend? Maybe they were. Hannah, the fee changes?
Okay. I will just note the reason there's so much red here is I simply rounded them up to be nice round numbers. So there's no real increase, maybe $1 or maybe a little more, but I just wanted to round them to the nearest 5 or 10 because the numbers were a little strange, and it just makes it a lot easier when you're doing rentals. So that's why there's lots of red on that recreation page.
Okay, any questions from council on the recreation fees? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you, Hannah. I can understand the desire to make it a little simpler. Okay, so there's 2 pages worth there of recreation. Oh no, there's more. There's Lakeshore tennis club, and the swimming ones that we saw earlier today, which are also included here. Anything further on, any other questions on the recreation page? I think it looks good. Oh, Hannah?
I will just note that we're not raising the fees for the swim program, just merely because we're doing those 3 two-week sessions instead. The numbers are just a little different, but the per class rate is staying the same or almost the same, as we're rounding it up to those nice numbers. So.
Okay. Okay, great. Anything further on swimming? Nope. Septic permits, there's no change there. Stop me if you want to talk about any of these signage fees. There's been some added for the ice resurfacer advertising and banner program. I think that was discussed with council before. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And no concerns, okay. Treasury Department, I just ran into a whole bunch of red. Amanda, anything you wanted to comment on the Treasury Department fees?
So a lot of those reds are under the Municipal Tax Sales Act. So we just take cost recovery. If a property has to go for tax sale, we send it to the real tax company and they do all the legal work for us. So we have just updated our fees to match theirs. There's no additional fee on our part. It's absolute cost recovery there. So that's the majority of all the red at the top. Duplicate tax bill history or receipt, we've increased that from $5 to $10. We do use our discretion, you know, if somebody is a one-off and they, you know, need some information on their property tax rule, we certainly do help them as much as we can. But there are some of those, as the CAO likes to say, frequent flyers who sort of rely on us to, you know, keep the information for them and don't keep copies of their tax bills or their histories or the receipts. So we have increased that to sort of cut that down because it is important for people to keep copies of their tax bills. And then the interest charges have stayed the same. I think we just changed the layout of that portion at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay, Amanda, just on those interest charges, should it be 1.25% per month?
Yes.
Okay, you could just make that change. That's what I figured.
Yep.
Probably a copy paste error or something. Okay. And then 15% per annum. All right, so that's just something note to change. Any questions on the Treasury Department fee changes? Not seeing any. Okay, waste management. This it reflects the discussion and the decisions of council in regards to making changes to the garbage bag tags and how it is being phased in for curbside for the IC&I sector. Sorry, not curbside. No change, no questions. Okay. Oh, and just a note that they removed the 50% discount for tipping fees on residential house fires. And I think that was a recommendation in the operational service delivery review. Okay. Because typically that's recouped from the insurance anyway. So why are we reducing our fee? Water and wastewater, no changes. Just a quick question about relocation of water meters. Why is it a fixed fee and not cost recovery? Relocating your water meter could involve significant work. More than $115 worth. I just was curious. I don't know who can answer that, but
I could, through Janice, ask Ashley to comment on it. We did send him our schedule of fees to ensure that we were recouping their costs. But I can ask this specific question as well.
right. Yeah, just to me, you know, it depends on where you want it relocated to, how much it's going to cost to replumb it to be somewhere else in your house. Okay. Anyways, just check into that. Want to make sure we are recouping those costs. And I think that brings us to the end of them. Oh, Amanda. Oh, you're muted.
There we go. I'm
Oh,
fine.
okay.
No, I just spoke to Janice, and we would prefer that it be cost recovery. If we could just amend that.
Okay. All right, so that gets us to the end. Sue, then do you have a recommendation to read?
Yes, I do, through the chair. That the schedule of fees report is accepted as information and that the bylaw will be passed at the regular council meeting on April 19, 2022 as amended. And that the administration schedule include that mileage is adjusted yearly based on the CRA automobile allowance. And that the bylaw department schedule is accepted with the addition of an occurrence fee structure. And that the planning department schedule is accepted with the change to purchase costs of shoreline from $8 to $10 with an associated review for the purchase of frontage costs per linear foot. And the non-refundable application purchase fee for shoreline road allowance be reviewed and possibly increased. And that the water and wastewater department schedule repair relocation of water meter be changed to cost recovery.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Is there any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. It's a little bit of work, but you know, we hope we're setting those fees at reasonable rates for everyone. Okay, next item is 12.1.2, Bill 27, discount. Oh, sorry, discount from work. Disconnect. Disconnect from work policy. Maybe discount makes more sense. Sue, did you want to speak to the policy?
This is legislated. We have to have one in place by June 2022. June 2nd, I believe, is the date. There is still some ambiguity in the policy. Some of the ministries have not accepted theirs or approved theirs as of yet. But what I did do is Edmiston and Bromley had looked at a couple of samples and circulated theirs, and I just added a few things that reflected more our operations, and I attached one for consideration. What it does is it ensures that it includes all of the ESA requirements that were listed from the provincial document that we received.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this policy? Okay, not seeing any. Sue, did you want to read the recommendation?
Yes. Through the chair, that council directs the CEO clerk to add the disconnect from work policy IT number 11 to the corporate policies and procedures and bring back a bylaw for council approval.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Sue.
Sorry, if I can just add, this is I hadn't had a chance to circulate it to all of staff just to review in case departmentally there's something I haven't considered. But if there is a change, I will make sure I note it when I bring it back for bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything further? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Next item is Health and Safety Management Program. And I think the report, the report doesn't say whose report it is, but it's Gwen and Sue, I believe. I don't know. Gwen, were you speaking to this or Sue?
I think Gwen found most of the information and guided us through the review. She did some research on what would be more a information management program for us than just a health and safety. So Gwen, if you wanted to speak to it.
I think the report is self-explanatory. It covers all of what I had learned, and I guess in the report, the department heads had sat through with for us. The only problem that we're having right now is for some reason our firewall is blocking access to their account. So we're working on that. So before we can, if council approves the recommendation before we have to see if we can get through to them. And it's on our end, so Deb has been working on it, but we keep getting glitches where it's just not easily accessible.
Okay.
And the management system will help Rachel and Amanda with human resources and adding information into personnel accounts, which was a kind of a bonus to this. And as far as staff goes for doing their inspections on the buildings and stuff, it's all electronic. So it'll be a learning curve for most, but I think in the long run, it's going to be very efficient and time consuming.
It's going to be very efficient and time consuming.
No,
Sorry.
save time.
Time saving. Sorry, I apologize.
No, this is fine. It's been a long day so far, and my brain just went, huh?
It'll be time consuming to get it rolling, I believe, but I think in the long run, it will be saving time.
Okay. All right. Yes, you just threw me for a loop there for a moment.
Yeah.
That's not usually why we choose to do something, because it's time consuming. Okay, fantastic. Any questions from council? Councillor Proplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I noticed on here that we could be eligible to receive rebates from WSIB. That would be kind of a nice thing, because along with our health and benefits, the WSIB has been going up also at practically the same rate. So what sort of rebates could we expect?
I believe at one time it was 4% of our, if we implement the program. There are costs involved to implementing the program at first because they are quite detailed. We've looked into it. We've compared a couple of municipalities that have joined the WSIB rebate program. Some have come back with positive remarks, and some have found it very time consuming to get there. So we're still looking at it. I just wanted to mention that just in case we do. I'm not sure how close we are to what the WSIB expects. So it's something to consider.
Good,
I don't know if
thanks.
Sue, did you
Okay.
have something to add?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was going to add. Yeah.
Okay.
No, the one thing that is really nice that extends as well is for the roads department, there's, they can have access on their telephone to do their circle check right on their telephone without having to go around. And as they, like Gwen mentioned, the onboarding might take a little bit of time just because it's specific to your department. So if you are roads and you're hired and it says you're an equipment operator, it'll give them all of the sheets that we have in our HR policy that you should be filling in as it pertains to equipment safety and your SOPs and your circle checks. So it's a management program. It's not a health and safety check the box program.
Okay. No, it sounds good. And I mean, even a small amount back is better than a kick in the pants. So it's nice to know that there could be the possibility of a little bit of a rebate. Any other questions on this from council? Okay, Sue, could you read the recommendation?
Yes, through the chair, that council approves the CEO clerk to sign the agreement with 4S Consulting Services for a health and safety management system, and that expenses as budgeted be distributed departmentally.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any final comments on the recommendation or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, fantastic. We're moving along slow and steady. Correspondence and information. We have an email from Madawaska Valley District High School dated March 15th, 2022 regarding the bursary annual award. I think this is pretty straightforward. This council's done it a number of times. Sue, did you want to read the recommendation?
Yes, through the chair, that council approve two $250 Madawaska Valley District High School bursaries for 2 Madawaska Valley resident students that has demonstrated financial need and that they meet the requirements with attending post-secondary education or an apprenticeship program.
Okay, could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Any discussion on the recommendation? Any desire to change any of the criterion we've set? Not seeing anything. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have from AMCTO a resolution on the provincial election regarding endorsing the AMCTO local government priorities for the 2022 provincial election document. Wow, and I'm not remembering this. I know I read it, but okay, so it's a significant resolution. Does council wish to support this, or is this something council wishes to file? Sue.
If staff has a say, the association is our voice. And these recommendations come from all of the joint committees and the working groups. So if the association is recommending that there are benefits to the 444 municipalities, as staff, I would like consideration to support the resolution.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Yes, I mean, the priority one, municipal resilience requires stable, predictable funding and investment. We're not disagreeing with that. Support continuous improvement through strengthened municipal provincial partnerships, always. And the third one, invest in skills development and training for the next generation of municipal professionals to lead innovation. I think these are all good points from AMCTO. Could I get someone move that we send a letter of support, or send a letter of support for this resolution? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we'll send a letter of support. Unfinished business, opportunities for rural Ontario in a post-COVID world. This is brought forward from February 1st, 2022, council and committee meeting. Okay, there's going to be, there's a couple of things going on from Roma in and around this. There is a survey on Rural Attainable Housing Task Force has got a survey to share your input on housing. And I can provide council with the link to that survey. You can also attend a zone meeting at which the chair of Roma and the author of the document is going to be presenting it to you, and there'll be some discussion. I mean, at this point in time, we're having a very long meeting. We are supposed to be keeping our meetings short. I think I'd like to just leave this at the moment in the hands of council to I'll send you the link for the housing survey. Important that our input is given. It's supposed to be about a 5-minute survey. And, consider attending the zone meetings. You did get a Roma update identifying 4 different dates and times for zone meetings. And you don't have to attend the Zone 6 meeting. You can attend any of the zone meetings because they're all done on Zoom. So there are 4 opportunities. And what I'll maybe do is, just because I know you get lots of email too, I'll just resend directly to council the Roma update that provides you with the link that you can click on to do the housing survey and the information about the zone meetings. And, after you've done that, and certainly I'm sure there'll be some discussion during the zone meetings. So let's, please provide your input and your thoughts, because Roma's trying to develop a work plan based on our opportunities paper that would be guidance for the Roma board for the next 4 to 5 years. So we want to hear from you guys. But for now, I think we'll just forego any lengthy discussion and just stick with that, if that's okay with council. Okay, we're just trying to get through this very long agenda. All right, so this concludes the standing committees, and we would be entering the regular council portion of the agenda. I'm wondering if council would like a 10-minute break just to stretch your legs before we do the final stretch here. Bylaws and minutes, is that okay? Would someone move that we take 10 minutes? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. All those in favor? And that's carried. So we'll just take a break until 2:15. Mr. Lebetsky, we are live streaming.
Oh,
Just so
I'm
you're
sorry.
aware.
I'm apologizing. I just wanted the bylaws signed tomorrow if possible. Will that be available?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay,
Mayor
just
Love,
wanted to.
I sent you a text about the section of the taxation under Municipal Act.
Okay, so there's an extra one in it.
That's right.
That shouldn't be there. Okay.
Just say as amended.
Okay, we will have to make that amendment to the actual bylaw.
That's correct. There was also a typo. I had put Farmer Road under number 2 instead of Mills.
Oh,
had
Mill
the wrong-
Street.
Yes, Mill Street.
Okay, I think I'll just note those items to council. And we'll just make that amendment. So those are 3 separate sections it's referring to then.
It is.
Okay, that was, seeing it all strung together, I was a tad confused. It just didn't look. Okay, I just will make this note for council. Thank you for checking that.
No problem.
Okay, sorry, council, just sorting something out on one of the bylaws. All right, so I guess I will call the meeting back to order. As I did state, we are live streaming. We're in the regular council portion of the agenda. We just took a 10-minute break. We're at the confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting minutes of March 15th, 2022. The recommendation is that the regular council meeting minutes for March 15th, 2022 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any errors or omissions on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Public meeting minutes of March 15th, 2022. The recommendation is the public meeting minutes for March 15th, 2022 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any errors or omissions on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Council and committee meeting minutes, March 17th, 2022. Just before I read the recommendation, I would just note there is a couple of amendments to the minutes that I would like to suggest. They're on page 307 of your agenda package. Let me see, where am I at on the page? Near the bottom. Under Cumbermere Community Center, it says Councillor Poplinski noted there was a hidden line in the budget. The treasurer stated she would correct the error. Councillor Poplinski noted the expense total was higher than it should be. That was what the councillor had identified, and the treasurer stated the line for capital expense was hidden and she would correct the error. I think that clarifies what the councillor asked,
Yes.
was that the expense total was higher, and if you did a quick scan of the numbers, it became quite obvious. So I'd like to clarify that. And also Mayor Love noted that the 2021 actual expense for Kaministkeg Roadside Park should be higher due to the porta potty expenses, because the actual expense was 0 and we know we had a porta potty there. So that was just a note to the treasurer to have a look and see where that particular expense entry had not been placed in the right place. Those were the 2 things I noticed in the minutes. So at this point, I would say the recommendation is that the council and committee meeting minutes, including all resolutions for March 17th, 2022 be approved as amended. But I just want to check with Council Sue. It's been a while. How do I do this so that if there's a recommendation in those minutes that the councillors wish to discuss, do they just identify that in discussion?
Yeah, they could, because right now it just includes all resolutions.
Okay. All right. So the recommendation is that the council and committee meeting minutes, including all resolutions for March 17th, 2022, be approved as amended. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Now, are there any of those resolutions or recommendations that council wishes to discuss in those minutes? Want to make sure I give you the opportunity. Okay, are there any other errors or omissions in the minutes that you noticed? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So if we're good with these, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, it's been a while since I did one of those and we're changing it. So special council meeting minutes of March 28th, 2022. Recommendation is that the special council meeting minutes for March 28th, 2022 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Okay, just checking. I saw the pen.
Yep.
Any errors or omissions on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Special council meeting minutes of March 29th, 2022. The recommendation is that the special council meeting minutes for March 29th, 2022 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover for those? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Business arising from the minutes. Any business arising from all those minutes? Okay. All right, I don't see any. So we'll start, we got quite a stretch of bylaws today. Starting into bylaws, we have bylaw 2022-09 regarding the shoreline road allowance closure and disposition along Wadsworth Lake in front of lot 11, registered plan 269, designated as part 1 on 49R-19956 in the geographic township of Radcliffe. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-09, being a bylaw to provide for the closing and stopping up of part of an original shoreline road allowance along the shore of Wadsworth Lake, Radcliffe, in front of Lot 20, Concession 11, Township of Madawaska Valley in the County of Renfrew, and for the sale thereof to the abutting landowners be given third and final reading this April 5th, 2022. I was going to say 5th day of April. It would have got us there. Can I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Is there any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-29 regarding site-specific zoning bylaw amendment of lots 178 and 179, Range B North, geographic township of Sherwood, from highway commercial HC to residential 2, exception 7 R2-E7. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-29, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-29 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-30 regarding the shoreline road allowance closure and disposition along Long Lake in front of lot 16, registered plan 520, designated as part 2 on 49R-20008 in the geographic township of Radcliffe. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-30, being a bylaw to provide for the closing and stopping up of part of the shore road allowance along Long Lake, aka Halfway Lake, in front of lot 16, registered plan 520, Radcliffe, now in the township of Madawaska Valley in the county of Renfrew, and for the sale thereof to the abutting landowners be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-31 regarding road standards maintenance bylaw. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-31, being a bylaw to establish road maintenance standards and road classifications for highways within the jurisdiction of the Township of Madawaska Valley, and delegation to the operations manager with respect to temporary road closures, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-31 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Having a little stall there for a moment, eh? Okay, any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-32 regarding water system budget and rates for 2022. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-32, being a bylaw to adopt the 2022 water system budget and establish the water system rates effective January 1st, 2022, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, don't want to lose myself. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-32 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-33 regarding wastewater system budget and rates for 2022. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-33, being a bylaw to adopt the 2022 wastewater system budget and establish wastewater system rates effective January 1st, 2022, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-33 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-34 regarding curbside pickup and transfer station budgets and rates for 2022. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-34, being a bylaw to adopt the 2022 curbside pickup and 2022 transfer station budgets and rates for municipal purposes, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-34 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2022-35 regarding Bay Day 2022 temporary road street closure. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-35, being a bylaw to close to vehicular traffic on a temporary basis, highways, streets, or portions thereof under the jurisdiction of council for such social, recreational, community, or athletic purposes or combination of such purposes, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-35 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Council, just the next two bylaws, there's a little bit of a mix-up in the descriptions. And so I'm just going to correct that. We'll start with 16.9 is bylaw 2022-36 regarding corporate policy amendment number 15, council staff relations policy. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-36, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2014-90 with respect to the addition of policy number A-19, council staff relations policy, to the corporate policies and procedures for the corporation of the township of Madawaska Valley, be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Love. I was going to bring that up because it mentioned here about the mission house. And I was somewhat confused what it had to do with the mission house.
Yes, so the confusion is that the line after the bylaw number should be on the one below it, and the line after the bylaw number on the one below it should be on the one above it.
Okay.
So when you actually
And
read this
so
bylaw, it's about
this bylaw related to the council staff relations policy.
yes,
We already have a policy, right?
yes. This
Does
is in-
anybody have a copy of that? Because
Yes.
I got something that was proposed. And I'm just wondering, is that possible to get a copy of it?
Absolutely, everyone received a copy for the training, but I'm sure the CAO can provide you with a copy.
Yeah,
And
I
it
can
was a-
forward it through the chair. It was the one that was approved in 2019. So all we're doing is we noticed it wasn't added to the book, like our HR book, but it's the same one that was approved.
So there's no changes being made to it.
No changes, no.
But it does need to be added to the HR book for staff.
Yeah,
No,
so I will
was-
send a copy.
I was away at a family emergency. We have a couple of people in the hospital right now. So at the time, so that's where I was. So
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
I will forward that to you again.
thank
So
you.
no, absolutely. We haven't changed the policy at all. It just literally is being added to the corporate policies and procedures book that staff accesses. So staff also need to be aware of this policy. And this was just an oversight. We didn't actually complete that process. So we're just completing it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Oh, now where am I? Okay, so I asked if there was any further discussion on the bylaw. Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-36 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, now this next one, just so council is aware, it is the tax exemption bylaw, but there's, let me see if I've got it. Okay, there's a slight typo that will need to be changed. There's two of them actually in the title of the bylaw because the section of the Municipal Act it refers to has an additional number in it. So you'll see in the recommendation, which is here, it says section 110 bracket 6 bracket 2 bracket 1 bracket 16 bracket. So it's section 110 bracket 6 bracket, and it's also bracket 2 bracket. That's another part of section 110, and bracket 16 bracket, which is a third part of section 110. So that correction needs to be made. Also, Sue, in the whereas pursuant to subsection 110 bracket, it says 06, but it should be 6 bracket, and 07, it doesn't refer to 7. Remember, that's the development charges.
Yes,
So we would take that 7 out of the bylaw.
that's correct.
So we're going to be referring to whereas pursuant to subsection 110 bracket 6 bracket. And did you want to include 2 and 16 there in
No.
the actual bylaw? No, just okay.
That's fine.
Just be aware that'll be changed. And the other item that is going to be fixed on this before it's signed is on number 2, that the tax exemption only applies to the Mission House building located at 1050 Mill Street, not Farmer Road. So those are the corrections. And then when I read this, I've put the proper introductory statement. So I'm going to read it now. Bylaw 2022-37 regarding tax exemption, section 110 of the Municipal Act, Mission House. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-37, being a bylaw to enact an exemption from taxation under section 110, bracket 6 bracket, bracket 2 bracket, and bracket 16 bracket, for a municipally owned building utilized for cultural tourist purposes be given first and second reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Any discussion on this bylaw? Okay, now that we've heard what the little changes are, they're just subtle. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2022-37 be given third and final reading this 5th day of April 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, got through that one. Our next item is an in-camera session. The recommendation is that the meeting enters in-camera session to discuss matters pertaining to, I better double check. Sue, do all of these reasons for going in camera pertain to the first set of minutes? Because we did delete the second set. So I guess education and training doesn't
Yes.
apply. Okay, just before I read this, just want to make sure I've got it correct. Okay, so anything, I'll take that out. Okay, the recommendation is that the meeting enters in camera session to discuss matters pertaining to the security of the property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Section 239, 2A, B, and C. And number 1 is the regular council meeting minutes in camera of March 15th, 2022. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist.